Hello and welcome, Exiles, to a very special day because we're talking about the energy shield switch, which is going to take the power level of this character way up. I'm pretty pumped about it. Now, I want to go over the basics of how this will work, what I'm thinking of basically putting together. I haven't put together all the gear, so this video is basically going to give you guys the picture, the pathway, how we're going to get there, what we're going to do. To start off with, for getting Righteous Fire to be permanently basically up, you cannot go CI because CI makes your life 1, Righteous Fire turns off, right? So in order to run Righteous Fire as an energy shield build, you have to have some way of making damage not bypass your energy shield. And our method of doing this is Coruscating Elixir. I 100% recommend getting this 28 quality by getting Hillock level 3 in research and running Katarina. That will give you the best uptime of the flask. And the way we're going to do this is via the Trader Keystone. Part of the reason I wanted Trader and Melding of the Flesh in the life-based version is because I was always planning to take this to the energy shield-based version, so it was just upgrades I was going to make along the way, and now the transition is going to be easier. So, Trader Keystone, generate flasks while one flask slot is empty, plus Coruscating Elixir. Now, normally, if this is all you have, you're not going to sustain it well enough, so we need a little bit more gain charges during basically more sources of increased gain charges. So we have a belt here with 20% increased charges gained. It has some flash duration on it. This is a very, I don't know, it's just kind of mediocre belt. Getting this belt upgraded to a 40% gain charges or reduced charges used and having a higher flask effect duration is going to make the permanent uptime of Coruscating much more consistent. Right now it's just decent with an okay belt. So I'll show you what that looks like here. If we put this belt on, and then I'm not done yet because the next thing we're going to do is we're also using Impossible Escape with Supreme Ego. Now, this is not going to be mandatory, but it's going to be highly recommended. It's not mandatory because we can always anoint replenishing presences. If you can't get this jewel, if it's expensive, I don't know how much it's going to end up costing throughout the league. You will just end up anointing replenishing remedies because this is important for what I'm going to talk about next. But it also gives us some increased charges gained. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the points there. And so now that we have that applied, we have our belt on, we have a Coruscating Elixir. I'm going to go ahead and press this. We'll look at the charges to give you an idea. It has reuse at the end of the flask. And the idea is over the course of the flask, we're gaining most of the charges back. So that way, we're only losing a small net amount of charges. You see it got all the way back to 47 before it used another 20 charges. And it started out at 50. So each flask cycle, we're losing roughly around 3 to 5 charges. So from it to go to 50 to below 20 charges is going to take 7, 6, 8 cycles of the flask, which is going to be a good minute plus a time range. And you're never not going to generate charges within that time frame while fighting a boss and fighting enemies. So this is going to be pseudo permanently up. And it's going to get better if we ever craft a better belt than this one. The other reason we want replenishing remedies right here is the Writhing Jar Tech. Let me talk about this for a second. Actually, I don't want to take it off because it'll lose all its charges. But the Writhing Jar, the reason we're using this is because we have a lot of benefits that happen when we kill enemies recently. One big benefit I'm planning on using is Vile Reinvigoration. This node has % ES, it has % damage over time, so it's already a good jewel, and on top of that it has a whopping 2% regen if we've killed an enemy recently. That's a large amount of regen. Normally you don't get to benefit from that, which makes Vile Reinvigoration largely not very consistent in boss fights, but I am planning to be able to proc this Writhing Jar every 4 seconds, and that means every Vile Reinvigoration is 2% regen. This is a huge amount of basically base regen, which Trickster normally struggles with, and this is going to give us a bunch of regen, and we're going to go from somebody who's struggling with regen to having so much oversustain, it's going to feel amazing. And we're also going to be proccing Patient Reaper. This is a node from Trickster that is largely inconsistent and useless in boss fights, but if we can use Writhing Jar, we can keep it 100% uptime in boss fights, or whenever we just need to pop it to get some sustain going, that's what we can do. Now, people were asking me, hey, is Writhing Jar going to count as killing enemies over time if you have Righteous Fire? And I'll showcase this now. If we have our defense tab up, you'll see it says 833 regen or 600 regen or whatever it says, right? That's the regen it says. If we prop the Writhing Jar, now I have to turn back on Righteous Fire. I'll pop the Writhing Jar, turn back on Righteous Fire, and you see we killed a worm with Righteous Fire, it went to 1250. So there's our 50% life recovery rate from Patient Reaper. And so that's showcasing that the worms do work for popping Patient Reaper, and they will work for popping Vile Reinvigoration. So that's how that the Writhing Jar is working. And then with replenishing remedies, we get basically 4 charges per every 3 seconds from for Writhing Jar, because it counts as a life and it counts as a mana flask, because it is a hybrid flask, and it's also getting the charges from Trader. Now currently with our current belt, this is resulting in about 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, and then we just use 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. It's about every 5 seconds, so it's not perfect uptime yet. It's probably going to be good enough, because most likely I'm just going to use this flask like, hey, I have 10k ES, I take a hit, I press the flask, and instantly I'm getting my full regen. And it doesn't matter that I only had semi-good regen before then type of thing. I'm probably just going to use it reactively, which will end up being it's perfect for what I need it for. But it has the potential to be 100% uptime when we get a better belt with higher percent charges gained. That's really all we need to make that go to getting this up every 4 seconds to be permanently uptime on that. Next up, I want to talk about something that I think is pretty cool. And it's really cheap right now. I bought these jewels for 20C a pop. No one's using Pyromaniac, but for Righteous Fire Trickster, it's an amazing set of jewels. Each jewel represents 5% regen per second, and we get immune to shock and immune to ignite with it. I think that's pretty cool. Is this the end game of the build? I'm not sure. It might be overkill on regen. Getting 10% here, 8% here, 50% recovery rate. We're going to be all the way up at 30% plus regen per second. It's probably going to be overkill. And ultimately, you can get more single target from crafting some ES, fire damage, burning damage, fire dot multi-jewels. But for right now, for the price point, these are very strong. And so I would pick up a pair if you're planning to follow this build. Don't go and flip these. If you're flippers, screw you guys. You're screwing it over for people who actually want to have fun. And I have a personal vendetta against you. Next up, I want to talk about the chest piece. The chest piece is integral to shape the future of this character's energy shield and how this character will feel playing. We have 2 options. Thanks to our combinators, we have 2 very good options. Option A is Explode Chest, where we're going to be chain exploding screens. It's going to feel so smooth. Life is going to be good again. And option B, we are an Ultra Tank. We're going for the 100% global defenses. And both these chests, both these mods are going to be recombinated with Sadist Garbs that have basically T1, the flat ES, flat evasion, and T1% evasion and percent energy shield. So it's going to be a very high energy shield chest that either has the key mod of Explode or global defenses. And so I know what decision I'm thinking of right now. Right now I'm leaning towards explosive explosions because it's just going to feel so good. We're already going to have very good defensive layers. We should be able to get to around 10k energy shield as is with the character. But if we go for the global defense mod, we could probably get close to 15 to 20k range, and we can also get crazy amounts of armor and evasion in the build. It'll be ultra tanky, ultra smooth for bossing. And so right now I have this choice in my head. Do I go for something that's going to be fairly tanky and then crazy smooth for mapping, or are we going for something that is just basically unkillable? So that's the decision I have in my head. Right now I'm pretty sure Explode Chest will cost us less than transferring over global defenses with recombinators, but it's going to be a big expensive piece. We're not going to do it right away. We're going to start out with just basically a high ES, high evasion Sadist Garb to start with, and eventually we're going to work our way towards crafting that, but that's going to be down the line what we're thinking of doing. And then for the rest of the gear pieces, I've started some of them, which is basically going for Spell Suppress Fracture on ES based gear. And then we're going to probably be doing a this helmet I won't end up keeping. This will be just something I'll start out with. But we're going to be doing a multi-link Hubris Circlet for our fire trap that I have a good idea of how to craft, and I'll probably go over once I do craft it, which might be in the next video. So hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of my plan for the energy shield based character. Our flask setup is pretty much going to be something like this. It's going to be a Coruscating Elixir, it's going to be a Writhing Jar, it's going to be a Bismuth to fix melding of flesh and free up some suffixes, and it's going to be a Quicksilver. Those are going to be our flask setup. That's going to be the rough idea of the transition. And today I'm going to be crafting the rest of the energy shield gear and switching over to it on stream. So feel free to stop by and hang out, and that's the plan for the character. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I can't wait to reveal it. Next video, I'll show you what we have to offer with the energy shield based version. Take care, Exiles.